Alright guys, let's go over some coding examples for Chapter 3. Now first I'm going to do a little bit of review and kind of cover some topics we haven't really discussed in the coding. So in this example I'm going to talk about using constants and then also setting the decimal point to where you want it. So I've got my screen set up. This is how we always start out, include IOStream using namespace, void main, and then we have our main program. So now I'm going to need two variables. Alright, the first variable is going to be a constant because our cost per square foot is always going to be $10.50. And we don't want something that somebody does in the program to screw that up. So we make it a constant. And remember, when we name our constants, if it's a constant, we typically use all uppercase for the identifier of the variable. So it's going to be a constant, meaning it's not going to change. It's going to be a double, meaning it's going to have a decimal point in there, and the name's going to be, cost per square foot, and we're going to initialize that to a value of 10.50. All right, then we're going to add some other ones. These are not going to be constants. Budget, area. Alright, so now we want to ask the user a question. And that question is, enter the amount for your doghouse in dollars. I always do that. Okay. So we want to ask them, obviously this example is going to be about building a doghouse. We want to ask them, hey, how much money do you have budgeted? So that's going to turn into the variable budget. So then we're going to take that and we're going to create area, which is going to be budget divided by cost per square foot. And sorry, I have still my caps lock on. Length size is going to equal the square root of area. Now at this point I want to make sure that I have a decimal point and then it's two places to the left or whatever, so I have two places on the right. So what I'm going to do is, remember I talked about those three items you have to pop in there, and we have to make it fixed. We have to say, hey, show the point, and we're going to fix it to a position 2, so at least 2 characters to the right will show. Alright, once that's set, then we can, now everything is kind of all automated, so we can just do a cout. And let me pause this and I'll finish it real quick. So the first line is going to say for a price of, and then it's going to pop in their budgeted amount, and then it's going to skip down to the next line. Now I don't have to do a semicolon here. I can just go right there, and then do and then I can just go right back. Oh, forgot there we go. Alright, so basically we set our cost per square foot, and then we created 3 variables. Then we asked them what their budget is, and then based on their budget, we squared it out and said, hey, for a price of what you're offering, this is how big of a doghouse I can build you. And when I run this, Ah, and if I was kicked off. Hold on. I'm going to have to turn that exception back on. Alright, so here we go. For the amount budgeted for your doghouse, let's say I budgeted $100. For the price of $100, I can build you a luxurious square doghouse that is 3.09 feet on each side. And if I run it again, let's say now I'm going to spend $200. Ah, hold on. Now I can do 4.36 feet on each side. So remember, a constant still has to have a type, and which is in this case is type double. And we typically name those with all uppercase so that we're aware when we see the variable that is a constant variable and does not change. And then if we want to set the decimal point, these are the 3 lines. We need to make it fixed in a certain position. We need to make sure it shows, and then the position is going to be 2 to the left or 2 to the right, however you want to say that. All right, and I typically have this saved like in a notepad document. That way I can always cut and paste it from something if I ever need it. I always hate going like, crap, what was that again? I have to go type it in and go look it up in the book. It's such a pain in the butt. Or you could just highlight it in the book and mark it off in your book and keep your book with you, however you want to do it. All right, let me comment this out. And move back. All right, let me show you something that they talked about in the book. But I didn't really mention in the lecture. Oh my gosh. All right, if there are certain points in your program where if a user enters what you want them to enter, the program can be done, you can just do exit 1, and that will make them exit. Now, if I also do a cout, really? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry. So in this case, hello out there, and then what the heck, if I run this, you're only going to see hello out there because it hit the exit. So maybe somewhere in your loops or your if-else statement or somewhere, maybe somewhere in your code, there are places where you want to, okay, hey, the user's done then, let me allow them to exit. So you can just pop that in there, and that gets them out of the program. Exit, brace 1. So that was like mentioned in like one small little paragraph or sentence in the book, so I just want to make sure we covered it. All right, let's comment that out. All right, and then I don't think we did a switch example for you, so let me do one of those right now. All right, to make this video shorter, the stupid stuff I'm just going to pop on the screen and then pause the video so that way you don't watch me type terribly today. All right, so here I got 2 variables, month and day. And now we're going to make the friendly weather program. So it's going to say, welcome to your friendly weather program. Enter today's date as 2 digits for the month and day. So you would enter, like, let's say this is May 28th. You would enter 5, and then you would enter 28. And then, obviously, the first thing comes for the month. The second one becomes the day as the user input. And then we set the seed for the random number to be the month times date. So that way, depending on what they type in, the seed will always be different. So every time we run this, as long as it's a different date, we'll get a different seed. All right, after that, we create another variable called prediction. And then we create another variable, which is going to be a character, that's called the answer. And then we send out to the screen, hey, the weather for today is... Now, at this point, I need a loop. I need something to run so that every time they punch something in, it keeps giving them data. And I know I want it to run at least once, so what kind of loop do I do when I want it to run at least once? That's right, the do while. All right, so now I'm ready for my loop. Well, not quite. So here I'm going to do while. And then, remember we talked about Boolean expressions and we talked about and or. So I'm going to make a Boolean expression here. basically it's going to ask them the question, did he want the weather today? And they're going to have to enter yes or no, or y or n. So as long as their answer equals, remember, 1 equal means to set the value, 2 equals means equals. And then I'm going to say, hey, you have to do a single quote, lowercase y, or answer equals single quote uppercase y. So when they get to the end, it's going to ask them a question, and it's going to say, hey, do you want to keep running this? And then if they hit uppercase or lowercase, it's going to run the loop again. Now, anytime you ask the user for input, you have to be prepared for the way people think. And people think all kinds of weird different things. You have no idea. So you're asking for yes or no. Some people are typing in YES. Other people are doing lowercase y. Other people are doing uppercase y. So you have to make sure that your program covers whatever they're going to type in, or be specific. Like up here in this case, it says, enter today's date as 2 integers for the month and the day. Well, that makes sense to me, but it might not make sense to my mom. So I may say something, or maybe put an example at the end of that, and say for the day and date. And then do, example, February 21st would be 2 space 21. Or something like that. So examples can help out a lot, especially when you're asking for user input. Remember, users are freaks. You never know what freak's going to be doing your program. All right, so I got my loop. So now what I want to do is I want to set the prediction, and I want that to generate a random number between 1 and 3. So I need to do percentage 3. And then, depending on what the random number is, I want to give them feedback. So, I need to do choices. Now I can do if, but in this case, it's easier if I just do case, or switch. For some reason, I always call switch case, and it's just a bad habit. So switch, and we're going to do prediction. So depending on what prediction is, curly brace, now we're going to do our cases. So case 0, and remember this one is colon, is going to be send out to the screen. The day will be sunny. Hooray! And then we need to break out of that if that was the answer. Now, I typically like them all nice and neat like that. Oh, what did I... Oh, dough. Why do you guys let me do this stuff? All right, and then case 1. And remember, this one is a colon. Oh my. I'm the only guy that gets sick at the beginning of summer. I don't understand it. All right, it's summer. Let's talk about a program that divides ice cream among people. And we're going to make a function to do it for us, to do all the division or whatever it is. And now, when I do functions, typically, whenever I'm making a program, like, hey, I need to do something that does this, this, and this, you know, I try to like break it down in my head. Okay, I needed to do this, I needed to do this, I needed to do this, and then I kind of figure out if I'm going to use a function. And if I am going to use a function, I try to do those first, because I also try to see, hey, you know, can I borrow code that I've already made from somewhere else? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the function first. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit. All right, and this is going to be a void function. And it's going to be ice cream division. And it's going to have two variables, integer number and double total weight. So that's the name of my function. And you know I'm a little OCD, so I got to do that. All right, so I need my bracket and my bracket. So now I can put my function inside here. So we know some users are evil or stupid, or however you want to say that. So we always need to make sure that we build in error correction mechanisms into our program, so that when somebody puts in the wrong input, you know, it tells it, hey, I can't do this. So we know if we're going to divide, you know, number of people by the weight of the ice cream, or how much ice cream that we have, we know we can't divide by 0. So we're going to do a variable double, or a variable of type double named portion, and we're going to say if number equals 0, cout and the OCD in me, ta-da. All right, you know, if I had to give you guys $1 for every time I forgot that last quotation mark, I would lose money teaching this class. All right, so that takes care of, you know, what do I do if somebody puts in, you know, there's 0 customers and screws that up. So now I want the regular portion to run, or the regular part of the program. So portion equals total weight divided by the number. And then cout and do a space, space, ta-da! All right, so that fixed everything. And then, of course, I like to make it all nice and neat. So that is going to be my function. Now, you might be wondering, why am I seeing this little red dot here? And the reason is because I built my function inside of main. And remember, our function should be outside of main. So now when I put end main there, now my function, everything seems to be okay. So now remember, we can take the header from our function and we can pop it right in there and use it as a declaration. Of course, we've got to add the semicolon at the back. And you see how like void all of a sudden fixed that when I put that semicolon in there. Wait a minute, there you go. So I put the semicolon back, and boom, void fixes. So now we're all set. Now we're set for the regular part of the program. So because I feel like crap, I'm just going to type this in or pause the video and put it in real quick so you guys don't make fun of me anymore today. All right, so I'm all done. So I created a variable named number. I created a variable named total weight because I also use those inside my function. So remember, in the lecture we talked about using separate names and then adding, like we used, I think we used number and then number parameter inside our function. So you can do it that way, or you can use the actual variables inside your function as well. This is a very small program. We're fine with using that. So number and total weight, I created them here in main, and then enter the number of customers, and then that becomes the number, and then enter the weight of the ice cream in ounces. Let's say we have 12 ounces to split between two people, and we know it's both going to be 6. And then we have our function call. So we have our function declaration, we have the function call, and then we have the function definition. So let's see if this works. Wait for it. Keep waiting. What the? All right, let me see what I broke. Now, remember, at the bottom, when you're doing these things, it'll show you your error. So my error was on line 113, so there was a bracket way down here that I had not commented out because I added that other bracket. So that'll fix it. One of the issues with commenting things out. Hey, number of customers. All right, I got 3 customers, and we're all fat. We're going to eat a whole 16 ounces. So then each one receives 5.33 ounces of ice cream. All right, if you don't know how things are going to go or you don't know what your function is going to exactly do, just write the program then anyway. And then after you write the function, you can just grab that header and then pop it up there as the declaration. And you're all set that way. So again, it saves you time for, oh crap, I got to do the declaration. What's it going to be? All right, that about does it for our coding example. Now don't forget, each week in Angel, I usually put 2 copies of the slides. The slides that I cover in the lecture, and that way if you ever need to go back, instead of trying to have to find on YouTube exactly where that slide popped up at, you can just open up the slides and find it quickly. But I also put the manufacturer slides in there because for me, I feel that they put a bunch of, what I want to say, useless stuff, but stuff that I don't need to go over because you can read it once and then you would know it. So as an example, here's the slides from Chapter 3 for the manufacturer. So we talked about those return of value, we talked about defining, declaring, but we didn't discuss recursive functions. So a function that calls itself is a recursive function. So that's kind of self-explanatory. I guess I don't typically talk about stuff like that in the lecture. So if you want to make sure that you didn't miss anything in the reading, you can go through the publisher slides as well just to see, oh, wait, what's a recursive function? Did I read that? Blah, blah. You get the idea. If I went over every little detail that they listed here, even the simple ones like a recursive function, your lectures would be 3-4 hours long. And that doesn't help anybody. I found that most people have between a 30 and 40-minute attention span, and after that they really stop paying attention anyway. So I typically try to make my videos 30 minutes or less, and that way you can kind of do them in little chunks when you've got time and you're fresh. But if you're going through the manufacturer slides and you see something like recursive function, and to you that doesn't make sense, and you can't find it in your book and you have a question, that's what the discussion forum is for. So again, don't feel bad about using the discussion forum. That's what it's there for. I'm here to teach you. If you're not asking questions, then I'm assuming you know it all and you understand everything. If you don't, you're only kind of robbing yourself. You paid $400 for the class. I'm getting paid whether you learn it or not. So I'm good. Don't worry about me. Worry about you. You need to be pulling this information. So if you've got any questions, make sure you bring them up on the discussion forums, and don't care what people think. Because trust me, if you've got a question, somebody else has that question. They're probably just too scared to admit it. All right, guys, that kind of wraps this one up. So again, any questions, put them on the discussion forums. And don't forget, next week is your first exam. So this week, you have the lab portion of your exam. So it's opened up. It's in your week 3 folder. You have this week and next week. It's not due until whatever it says on in Angel, which I think for you guys, if this is the summer class, it's June 28th. So you've got 2 whole weeks to work on the lab portion. Now, when you open up that lab portion of the exam, it gives you 2 options, option A or option B or 1 or 2. You only have to do one of those. And then that's worth 25 points, and then the written exam is worth 75 points.